put your phone or device aside and immerse yourself in this audio story. Perfect for listening on the move, while relaxing, or for bedtime listening. We release new stories daily, so make sure to like and subscribe to not miss out. This story is based on true events. The Executioner's Ledger. In the summer of 2008, a single phone call changed everything. The CEO of a century-old American institution sat in his corner office, watching his company's stock price collapse in real time. Not because his business was failing, but because somewhere in the shadows, traders with billions of dollars had decided it should die. They called it short selling. He called it financial murder. Within 72 hours, his company would be erased from existence, taking with it the life savings of thousands of employees and investors. But here's what they never told you. This wasn't an accident. It was a hunting strategy perfected over decades. A dark business story where the predators don't just profit from failure. They manufacture it. Welcome to the hidden world of short-selling manipulation, where hedge funds wielding weapons of mass financial destruction have turned Wall Street into a killing floor. This is the story of how a legitimate trading strategy became the most dangerous tool in modern finance. How billionaires built empires by orchestrating corporate executions, and how the system designed to protect markets became the very mechanism used to destroy them. What you're about to hear is a business thriller that's entirely real. A tale of wealth and power, built on the systematic demolition of companies, careers, and lives. The mechanics of short selling sound almost innocent when explained in textbooks. You borrow shares you don't own, sell them at today's price, wait for the price to fall, then buy them back cheaper and return them to the lender, pocketing the difference. It's supposed to be a check on overvalued companies, a way to keep markets honest. But in the hands of certain hedge funds, this financial mystery has been transformed into something far more sinister. A corporate scandal in slow motion, repeated thousands of times, hiding in plain sight. The transformation began in the 1980s, when a new breed of trader discovered something chilling. You don't have to wait for a company to fail. You can make it fail. With enough capital, enough media connections, and enough ruthlessness, you could create the very crisis you're betting on. This wasn't just business crime. It was alchemy, turning other people's destruction into pure gold. The playbook is elegant in its cruelty. First, identify a vulnerable target, perhaps a company with high debt, a struggling sector, or management that's made mistakes. Build a massive short position, borrowing millions of shares. Then comes the dark art, spread doubt. Plant questions with journalists. Commission research reports highlighting every possible risk. Whisper to other traders that something's wrong. Fund activist research firms to publish damning analyses. The goal isn't truth, it's momentum. Fear is more contagious than facts, and once that first domino falls, the cascade becomes unstoppable. Consider the case of Fairfax Financial, a Canadian insurance company that became the target of a coordinated short attack in the mid-2000s. CEO Prem Watsa watched in horror as his company's stock plummeted more than 60%, despite solid fundamentals. Anonymous research reports appeared questioning the company's reserves. Message boards exploded with rumors of accounting fraud. Hedge funds held massive short positions, stood to make hundreds of millions if the stock continued falling. Years later, court documents would reveal the existence of what prosecutors called a criminal enterprise, a network of traders, analysts, and investigators working together to destroy the company's reputation and drive down its stock. The wealth and power involved was staggering, a real-life business story of coordinated financial warfare. But Fairfax fought back, hiring investigators, filing lawsuits, exposing the network. Most companies aren't so lucky. Most die quietly, their executives never understanding they weren't competing in a market. They were trapped in an execution chamber. The scale of these operations is breathtaking. By 2008, short interest in some financial stocks exceeded 50% of available shares, meaning more shares were sold short than actually existed in free circulation. This shouldn't be possible in a functioning market, yet it was happening everywhere, enabled by a practice called naked short selling, where traders sell shares they haven't even bothered to borrow. It's counterfeiting, essentially, flooding the market with phantom shares to drive down prices. These entrepreneurship secrets of the hedge fund world made billionaires out of men willing to exploit every loophole and gray zone in the financial system. The most chilling aspect isn't the tactics, it's the circular logic that emerges. When a hedge fund shorts a stock and then works to make that stock fall, their actions create evidence for their original thesis. The falling price becomes proof the company was overvalued all along. Critics are dismissed as conspiracy theorists, even as the conspiracy unfolds in real time. It's the perfect money and greed machine, self-justifying, self-perpetuating, and enormously profitable. Then came March 2008, and the shadow dealers went hunting for their biggest prey yet. Bear Stearns had survived since 1923, weathering the Great Depression, world wars, and countless market crashes. But on March 10, 2008, whispers began circulating that the investment bank was facing a liquidity crisis. The whispers became rumors, the rumors became headlines, and the headlines became a death sentence. Within 5 days, Bear Stearns would cease to exist as an independent company, sold to JP Chase for $2 per share, down from $172 just 16 months earlier. But here's what the business documentary versions rarely emphasize. Short sellers had been circling Bear Stearns for months, building massive positions, waiting for the moment to strike. The week Bear died, short interest in the stock exploded. Hedge funds weren't just betting on failure, they were accelerating it. Every share sold short added to the selling pressure. Every margin call forced more liquidation. The spiral fed itself. And the traders who understood the mechanics made fortunes as a century-old institution collapsed in days. One hedge fund manager, who'd shorted Bear Stearns, reportedly made over $250 million in a single week. This was the financial mystery at its core. Was Bear Stearns killed by its own problems, or by the traders betting it would die? The answer, terrifyingly, is both. SEC Chairman Christopher Cox later admitted that false rumors can lead to a loss of confidence that becomes self-fulfilling. But by then, Bear Stearns was already gone, along with thousands of jobs and billions in shareholder value. The predators had moved on to their next target, Lehman Brothers. Throughout that apocalyptic summer, hedge funds with enormous short positions in financial stocks orchestrated what some would later call economic terrorism. Lehman, Merrill Lynch, Morgan Stanley, Goldman Sachs, all faced coordinated short attacks as rumors swirled and confidence evaporated. The stock market secrets that everyone learned too late. In times of crisis, short sellers don't just profit from chaos, they create it. And the wealth extracted from these attacks flowed to a small circle of hedge fund managers who'd positioned themselves perfectly for catastrophe. In September 2008, regulators finally acted, imposing emergency restrictions on short-selling financial stocks. But the dam had already broken. Lehman Brothers filed for bankruptcy on September 15th, triggering a global financial meltdown that would destroy trillions in wealth and throw millions out of work. How much of that was caused by legitimate market forces, and how much by predatory short-selling? The question haunts financial historians to this day. The billionaire secrets of that era reveal a stark truth. Some traders entered 2008 with explicit strategies to profit from financial collapse, positioning themselves to extract maximum value from maximum pain. They weren't just reading the market, they were writing the headlines, shaping the narrative, ensuring their dark vision became reality. But the manipulation playbook extends far beyond the crisis years, woven into the daily operation of modern markets. Consider bear raids, coordinated attacks where groups of short sellers target a specific stock, overwhelming it with selling pressure while simultaneously spreading negative information. Or short and distort schemes, the inverse of pump and dump, where traders take short positions, then launch campaigns of disinformation to drive prices down. These aren't theoretical concerns. They're documented patterns that cost companies billions and investors fortunes. One notorious case involved Overstock.com and its CEO, Patrick Byrne, who spent years alleging he was the target of a coordinated naked short-selling campaign. Wall Street dismissed him as paranoid, but documents later emerged showing he was right. A network of hedge funds, prime brokers, and research firms had indeed targeted his company, creating phantom shares and manipulating prices. The corporate scandal took over a decade to unravel, and the full story of who profited and how they coordinated remains murky. That's the nature of this dark business story. The evidence is always circumstantial, the paper trails deliberately obscured, and the players protected by layers of legal and financial complexity. The rise and fall of companies targeted by sophisticated short sellers follows a predictable trajectory, and understanding it reveals the true scope of the problem. Phase 1. Identification. Hedge funds employ teams of analysts searching for vulnerable targets, companies with weak balance sheets, controversial business models, or regulatory troubles. They're looking for companies where doubt could spiral into disaster. Phase 2. Accumulation. Build massive short positions quietly, often through complex derivatives that hide the true scale of the bet. Phase 3. Activation. Release damaging research, tip off journalists, fund investigations, file whistleblower complaints with regulators. Create the appearance of independent discovery while orchestrating every move. Phase 4. Acceleration. As the stock falls, margin calls force investors to sell, creating additional downward pressure. Option market makers hedge their positions, adding more selling. The death spiral becomes mechanical, almost algorithmic. Phase 5. Extraction. Cover the short positions at massive profits, move to the next target, and let the carcass of the destroyed company serve as a warning to others who might resist. This business thriller plays out dozens of times per year, often targeting innovative companies that threaten established industries. Electric vehicle manufacturers, biotech firms with promising treatments, disruptive technology companies. All have faced systematic short attacks from hedge funds with ties to their traditional competitors. The pattern suggests something darker than market efficiency. Industrial sabotage disguised as investment strategy. Tesla became perhaps the most famous battleground, with CEO Elon Musk openly warring against short sellers he accused of spreading FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt. At its peak, Tesla was the most shorted stock in American markets, with short interest exceeding $20 billion. Coordinated campaigns questioned everything from production numbers to accounting practices to Musk's mental state. Research reports proclaimed Tesla's imminent bankruptcy. Anonymous Twitter accounts with suspicious sophistication spread rumors and manipulated sentiment. The money and greed involved was staggering. Billions of dollars betting on failure, with incentives to ensure that failure occurred. But Tesla survived, even thrived, costing short sellers more than $40 billion in cumulative losses by 2021. The victory was rare, a reminder that while the deck is stacked, it's not rigged beyond all possibility. Yet for every Tesla that survives, dozens of companies die, their stories untold, their potential unrealized, sacrificed to the profit calculations of shadow dealers in Manhattan and Greenwich. The psychological impact on targeted executives is severe, a hidden cost that financial metrics never capture. Imagine watching your life's work systematically destroyed by traders who've never met you, who understand nothing about your industry, who care only about the numerical value they can extract from your company's death. CEOs of shorted companies report death threats, surveillance, investigators digging through their personal lives, journalists ambushing them with loaded questions based on false premises. It's psychological warfare waged with Bloomberg terminals and SEC filings. Some executives fight back with lawsuits, though the legal system offers limited recourse. Securities fraud is notoriously difficult to prove, requiring evidence of deliberate manipulation rather than mere aggressive betting. Hedge funds have learned to operate in the gray zones, coordinating without explicit conspiracy, manipulating without leaving fingerprints. They hire former SEC enforcement lawyers to navigate the boundaries, ensuring their financial mystery operations stay technically legal, even when ethically bankrupt. The regulatory response has been pathetically inadequate, captured by the same financial industry it's supposed to police. After the 2008 crisis, rules around naked short selling were strengthened, slightly. Reporting requirements were enhanced, marginally, but the fundamental structure remains unchanged. Hedge funds can still build massive short positions, still coordinate attacks, still profit from destruction. The SEC occasionally brings enforcement actions, extracting token fines that amount to rounding errors in hedge fund P&L statements. The real-life business story of financial regulation is one of perpetual surrender, where captured regulators rationalize inaction as respect for market dynamics. The COVID-19 pandemic revealed how little had changed and how much worse things could still become. March 2020 saw market chaos not experienced since 2008, with violent swings and devastating losses across all sectors. Retail investors, trapped at home with stimulus checks and Robinhood accounts, began noticing something strange. Certain stocks seemed to be moving in ways that defied logic, with massive short positions creating technical dynamics that overwhelmed fundamentals. GameStop, a struggling video game retailer, had short interest exceeding 140% of its float, meaning more shares were sold short than actually existed in public hands. This should have been impossible, a clear sign of naked short selling running rampant. But it was happening openly, another business scandal documentary waiting to be written. When Reddit traders discovered this absurdity, they did something unprecedented. They fought back. In January 2021, retail investors coordinating through Wall Street Bets Forum began buying GameStop shares and call options, forcing a short squeeze where short sellers had to buy shares at any price to close their positions. The stock rocketed from $17 to $483 in days, inflicting billions in losses on hedge funds who'd bet on GameStop's death. The wealth and power dynamics of Wall Street inverted, if only briefly, as amateurs took down professionals using their own weapons. The establishment response was revealing. Trading platforms restricted buying, allowing only selling, a move that protected short sellers at the expense of retail traders. Congressional hearings condemned the gamification of trading, while ignoring the predatory short selling that made the squeeze possible. Financial media depicted retail traders as reckless gambling addicts rather than citizens rejecting a rigged system. The message was clear. Manipulation is only manipulation when the wrong people profit. Hedge fund manager Gabe Plotkin's Melvin Capital lost 53% in January 2021 due to short positions in GameStop and other meme stocks. He required a $2.75 billion bailout from Ken Griffin's Citadel and Steve Cohen's .72. Titans of Wall Street riding to the rescue of a wounded colleague. By 2022, Melvin Capital would shut down entirely, unable to recover from the wounds inflicted by retail traders who'd learned the stock market secrets the professionals wanted, kept hidden. But Plotkin and his investors merely suffered reduced returns. The employees of companies destroyed by short sellers lost everything. The GameStop saga exposed the infrastructure supporting short-selling manipulation. prime brokers who facilitate massive leverage, market makers with conflicts of interest, payment for order flow schemes that sell retail trading data to hedge funds, and clearinghouses that selectively enforce rules to protect institutional players. It's an ecosystem designed to extract value from retail investors while protecting the predators. A business crime woven into the fabric of modern finance. Yet even after GameStop, after congressional hearings and media attention and promises of reform, the fundamental dynamics remain unchanged. Short selling continues at record levels. Coordinated attacks still target vulnerable companies. Hedge funds still build massive positions and then work to make their bets pay off through any means necessary. The system has absorbed the shock and returned to its default state. Predation disguised as price discovery. The billionaire secrets of successful short sellers reveal patterns of behavior that would be criminal in any other context. They cultivate relationships with journalists who will publish damaging stories without critical scrutiny. They fund research shops that produce hit pieces on command, academic-seeming documents that get cited as independent analysis. They coordinate through informal networks, sharing information and timing attacks for maximum impact. They exploit regulatory loopholes and fight any attempt to close them. Most devastatingly, they've convinced much of the public that this is how markets are supposed to work, that their predation serves some higher economic good. The defense of short selling rests on a kernel of truth. Markets need skeptics, and overvalued companies should face pressure. But that legitimate function has been weaponized beyond recognition, transformed from market hygiene into market murder. When the profit motive aligns with destruction, when billions can be made by engineering corporate death, the temptation to manipulate becomes overwhelming. And the evidence suggests that temptation has been succumbed to, repeatedly, systematically, with devastating consequences for innovation, employment, and economic dynamism. Consider the opportunity cost. How many breakthrough technologies never reached market because the companies developing them were destroyed by short sellers? How many life-saving drugs remained undeveloped because biotech firms couldn't survive coordinated attacks? How many jobs vanished not because of market forces, but because of market manipulation? These questions have no answers, only the haunting certainty that the toll is significant and the accountability non-existent. The international dimension adds another layer of complexity. Chinese companies listed on American exchanges have been particular targets, with numerous short sellers publishing damaging research alleging fraud, manipulation, and fabricated revenues. Some of these allegations proved accurate. Chinese corporate governance can be opaque and fraudulent, but others appeared to be pretexts for profitable short attacks with limited evidence but maximum market impact. The geopolitical implications are concerning. Short selling has become a tool of economic warfare, with traders profiting from international tensions and regulatory arbitrage. The rise of activist short sellers, like Muddy Waters Research and Hindenburg Research, has created celebrity status for professional company killers. These firms present themselves as valiant truth-tellers exposing fraud, and sometimes they are. But they're also profit-driven entities that build short positions before publishing reports, ensuring they benefit financially from the damage their research inflicts. The conflict of interest is obvious yet somehow acceptable in modern finance. Another example of how entrepreneurship secrets have been corrupted into weapons. Hindenburg's reports have destroyed tens of billions in market value, targeting everyone from electric truck manufacturer Nikola to Indian conglomerate Adani Group. Some reports exposed genuine fraud, others simply highlighted risks that were already public knowledge, repackaged as shocking revelations. But in each case, Hindenburg profited from the chaos, a business thriller model that incentivizes maximum destruction, regardless of underlying truth. The psychological profile of successful short sellers is fascinating and disturbing. They must cultivate a worldview where failure is inevitable and success is suspicious, where optimism is naivete and skepticism is wisdom. They must find satisfaction in being proven right through others' suffering, must view corporate death as intellectual vindication rather than human tragedy. This mindset attracts a particular personality type: brilliant, contrarian, emotionally detached, and ruthlessly focused on one metric: profit extracted from correctly predicting or causing decline. Many short sellers see themselves as heroes, financial vigilantes cleaning up overvalued markets and punishing fraud, and some genuinely have exposed wrongdoing that regulators missed. But heroism requires acting without corrupt motive, and that's precisely what the financial incentive structure destroys. When you make millions by proving a company is worthless, the temptation to ensure it becomes worthless overwhelms the commitment to objective truth. This is the moral corruption at the heart of the system, the reason why legitimate skepticism has curdled into predatory manipulation. The technology enabling modern short selling has accelerated both its scale and sophistication. High-frequency trading algorithms can execute massive short positions in milliseconds, overwhelming human traders and creating artificial price movements. Social media monitoring tools identify emerging negative sentiment that can be amplified and exploited. Alternative data sources, satellite imagery, credit card transactions, web scraping, provide information edges that get monetized through short positions before becoming public knowledge. The financial mystery has become algorithmic, with machine learning models optimizing manipulation strategies faster than regulators can comprehend them. Meanwhile, the human cost compounds in quiet desperation. When a company collapses under short-selling pressure, employees lose jobs and health insurance. Retirement accounts invested in targeted stocks evaporate. Suppliers waiting for payment face their own crises. Communities dependent on major employers watch them disappear. None of this registers in hedge fund performance metrics, just as the suffering of prey doesn't appear on predators' ledgers. The solutions remain elusive, blocked by the same wealth and power that profits from the status quo. Proposals to restrict short selling face fierce lobbying from hedge funds, who argue, with some merit, that short selling provides market liquidity and price discovery. But between a total ban and total freedom lies vast middle ground, where reforms could make manipulation harder without eliminating legitimate hedging. Increased transparency around short positions would help, as would stricter enforcement of naked short-selling prohibitions. Requiring short sellers to disclose positions before publishing research would reduce conflicts of interest. Circuit breakers that pause trading during suspected manipulation could limit damage. None of these are radical ideas, yet all face insurmountable political opposition from an industry that's made opposition its most profitable investment. The European Union has experimented with more aggressive restrictions, including disclosure requirements and temporary bans during market stress. The results have been mixed. Liquidity did decline slightly, but so did some of the most egregious manipulation. American regulators watch these experiments with interest, but take no action, paralyzed by ideology that equates any market intervention with socialism, regardless of the manipulation that intervention would prevent. In the end, short-selling manipulation persists because it serves powerful interests, and those interests have captured the institutions meant to constrain them. It persists because the victims are diffuse and disorganized, while the beneficiaries are concentrated and ruthlessly effective. It persists because we've constructed an ideology that sanctifies market outcomes, regardless of how those outcomes were produced, that treats wealth extraction as wealth creation, that mistakes predation for efficiency. The shadow dealers operate in plain sight now, barely bothering with pretense. They appear on CNBC, explaining their short positions, publish detailed reports on their targets, coordinate openly through social media and conferences. The transformation from secret conspiracy to accepted practice is complete. A stunning example of how power normalizes itself, how the outrageous becomes ordinary, how financial murder becomes just another business strategy. For retail investors and company builders, the lesson is stark. In modern markets, you're not just competing against other companies or even against general economic forces. You're competing against sophisticated predators with unlimited capital, media connections, and a playbook refined over decades of hunting. They will study your weaknesses, coordinate their attacks, and profit from your destruction, while claiming they're simply making markets more efficient. And the system will protect them, because they are the system. The dark side of hedge funds isn't that they short sell. It's that they've industrialized destruction, turned corporate death into an assembly line, and convinced the world that this is how capitalism is supposed to function. They've taken a legitimate tool and weaponized it beyond recognition, building fortunes on the rubble of companies that might have changed the world. And they sleep soundly, convinced by their own propaganda that they're heroes rather than executioners, market makers rather than market manipulators. That CEO in 2008, watching his stock price collapse in real time, made one final phone call before his company died. He called his largest institutional investor, begging for support, for anything that might stop the death spiral. The investor was sympathetic, but clear. We can't fight the shorts. They're too powerful, too organized. If they want you dead, you're dead. I'm sorry. And that's the truth that Wall Street doesn't want you to know. In the shadow markets where hedge funds hunt, the game isn't about finding value or allocating capital efficiently. It's about power. Who has it, who wields it, and who dies when it's deployed. The manipulation isn't a bug in the system. It is the system, operating exactly as designed, extracting maximum profit from maximum destruction, protected by complexity and enabled by capture. The next time you hear about a company collapsing amid short seller pressure, remember, you're not witnessing market forces. You're witnessing an execution carried out by shadow dealers with a license to kill, leaving no fingerprints and facing no consequences. This is the real, dark business story of modern finance. The corporate scandal that never makes headlines because it's repeated so often it's become mundane. The systematic conversion of innovation, employment, and economic potential into hedge fund performance fees. And in the darkness of Wall Street's trading floors, the hunt continues. New targets are being identified. New positions are being built. New destruction is being planned. The shadow dealers are always hunting, and the next prey might be you. Subscribe and listen to our next story below.